Welcome to the Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Guys, welcome back to the Brain Dump, your podcast all about psychology of success. I got my co-host here, Anthony. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Not as good as you though, man. You're having a crazy day getting deals done. I closed a deal today, but man, your deal makes my deal look bad.
No, your deal looks good.
I got deal envy.
Yeah, whatever. Rick doesn't care about anything related to real estate. So, guys, we have the honor of having to be honest with you, probably one of my favorite people on the planet, because Rick, his podcast, when I was going through a rough time, Morning Coffee, seemed to be a window into my soul every time he released something. I don't know if he knew what I was thinking or what, but every time the message hit, author, ultra marathon runner, so many things. And so, Rick, honored to have you here, my man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy. It's funny because I think a lot of people find Morning Coffee when they're in the midst of that, turbulent times, because that's what I started the show. When I started the show, I had reached a point where I was like done lying to myself. And I was like, okay, let's start talking about what's real to me. And so I think it just turns out that, a lot of people find me in that rocky time in their life.
And they seem to find me too in those rocky times. So, if you could kind of give the audience a 5 to 7 minute kind of view of who you are and what you do, and then we'll get rolling on the topic here.
Yeah, sure, man. I'm not going to talk for 7 minutes about what I do, but I spent 12 years in the military as a special operations combat medic. And so, I reached a point in my military career where I realized the easiest thing I could do would be to continue re-enlisting and just continue doing the job. I was being called to do other things, to write, to speak, to create content. And it's interesting because though it's a real difficult thing to get into the military and become a special operations combat medic. You go through 2 selections just for that. And then you reach a point where it's like, okay, well, to be honest with myself, I've got to continue to do the difficult thing, which at this point means I actually have to leave. I've got to go out and figure out what I want to do and what resonates with me. At that same time, I was running a lot of ultra marathons, as you mentioned. Right when I got out, I ran a 240-mile run in body armor. That's kind of an ode to my military service to raise money for the family of fallen veterans. And really through that, I'm not a pro athlete. I was never going to be a pro athlete. But at the same time, I started taking stock in all of the mental lessons I was learning when I was really in the trenches of all of the adversity that I seem to continue to put myself in. And so now a lot of my work is really just talking about what is it that we can learn about putting ourselves into the arena in life rather than talk about it from the outside. And you look out in the world now and there's a whole lot of people recycling memes that they've never lived out. And so the crux of my content is really about trying to find a meaningful life while you're in the midst of adversity. What does that look like? And that's kind of what my content focuses on now.
And I love that. And there's so much there. And that's why the topic today, guys, death. Nobody ever talks about this. And, I'll let Anthony and Rick kind of take it away. And then, because, I'll be honest with you, when we talked about this topic, like I told Rick, it makes me uncomfortable. So that means it's going to be a good conversation. So, in essence, the work that you've done and kind of thing, when you look at your own mortality, how does one go about that, to be honest with you?
Well, I'd say that you maybe don't go to your mortality, maybe go to one day before, right? Let's say that you're happy enough to look back. And in that moment, you look back at your life and you realize, and this is a question I had to ask myself, because, I'm getting out of the military. I'm getting a lot of pressure to go work for the State Department, to take lucrative job offers that would allow me to continue my kind of plush sort of, lifestyle. And so everyone has all this advice about what you should do, who you should be, what your life should look like. Well, if you're lucky enough to look back on it all, you come to the realization that nobody else has to be happy with the life that you've lived. Right? It's only you. And so all the things that you tell yourself to keep yourself safe, all the things you think you should do, all the things that you think make you worthy of your life that other people have given you, none of those things are going to be the thing at the end that you're going to have to be content with, right? You've got to be content with the lifestyle that you've lived, the decisions you've made. And so for me, just taking that view on things in your life gives you just another perspective in which to view the decisions that you're making today.
Anthony? Okay, you're on mute, buddy.
Oh, sorry, guys. Man, I was having some massive technical difficulties over here. Headphones went out, microphone went out, and so we're at the end here. No, but as you're talking about this, Rick, I'm thinking about the idea of like regret and how that's such a powerful motivator. And one of the things that you hear people talking about is that you regret the things that you didn't do versus the things that you did do. And I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion on that. Like, where do you fall? Do you find regret manifests itself when we are holding ourselves back from accepting those challenges, or that we made the wrong decision, we went down the wrong path, and we look back and said, I regret having done that?
Well, I think the question is, do we even truly know the path? Like we have some sort of say. I think one of the things that I fall into is I try to force too many things. And I'm trying to, like, when I've been on my own journeys, right, out in the desert and through my divorce, the thought process that keep coming into my mind and tell me if this resonates with you is surrender. Like, I think like too many times in life, I'm trying to put myself in a position where I think something's supposed to go that way. And I wound up getting down that path and not even liking where I am.
Yeah. That's probably the hardest thing for the modern person, is to like really let go of the outcome, right? Because you have all these models of reality that if I do this, that'll make me worthy. If I do this, that'll make me successful. And so like surrendering those to the realization that, well, actually, you probably don't know what success looks like for you. It's probably far better than even you could imagine if you have the courage to step forward to it, And so for me, the idea of making the right or wrong decision, it's kind of a moot point because, as you just mentioned, you really don't know. Like, you really don't know. Here's an example. I dropped out of college to date my high school girlfriend, right? Now that's a terrible idea. Objectively, that is a really bad decision. I wouldn't take anything back. I ended up going down this really crazy road that sent me into the military. I went down a like special forces career. Like, by all measures, I made a bad decision. And yet looking back, it's like, well, what did I do? I gave myself fully to my decisions. I gave myself fully to this life. And so as long as you're doing that, I don't think you can make the wrong decision. I think it'll work out. I think that you'll look back at some point when you're in the right place, you'll look back and you'll realize you needed all of it. The misgivings, the wrong turns, you needed all of it to become the person that you are today.
I look at a lot of those guys, the motivational speakers, from a far view, and I take what I need and leave what I don't. But Ed Milet said something to me that was very interesting. He was talking to a group of men, and he says, I have to believe that I spend every day, and when my days are done, that God stands me next to who he created me to be. And I look at that guy, and that guy says, way to fucking go. Like, way to fucking go. You left it all on the table. And you did everything that you dreamed and thought you were going to do. And for me, that's something that keeps replaying in my life. Am I going to get to the end of my days and say, you left it all out on the field? You impacted as many people as you could possibly do, but you did it my way, like my way. And I think for most of my life, I was doing it for my father, or I was doing it for my mom, or I was doing it for my ex-wife that I couldn't make happy. And it wasn't until I started dealing with my own shit and getting sober and understanding that, like, I didn't even know where I was truly headed. Now, it might take longer for me, but I'm going to know that when I get to the end of the road, it's for me.
Rick, you mentioned something before about stepping into the arena, and I'm curious what that looks like on a day-by-day basis as we're thinking about, like, 'cause I think we're all fans of this here in this group, probably like this idea of embracing the discomfort and like moving towards the fear, because I think that's where a lot of growth occurs, is when we're outside that comfort zone. But what's that practically mean to step into that arena?
Yeah. So while I do agree with you, I would also say that most people in Western culture actually only like to get uncomfortable in ways that they're comfortable getting. And so, it's like we all say, yeah, you grow outside of your comfort zone. And so maybe I'm comfortable going to the gym every morning, right? And so maybe actually the most uncomfortable thing for me would be to not go, right? To sit with who I actually am. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, it's often not about replaying or reinforcing my worldview or narrative. It's asking myself, what would that look like? What is uncomfortable for me? And then why is it so uncomfortable? Why is it so uncomfortable for you to not go to the gym today? Right? Like I killed myself in, 12 ultra marathons in 10 months. I'm really comfortable doing that. It's uncomfortable for most people, but it's something that actually it helps me to escape my life. I actually don't have to sit with who I am if I'm out running. And so for me, it's taking stock in whether I'm actually like self-honoring in the decisions I'm making, or am I actually abandoning myself to get uncomfortable, which is what a lot of escapisms and people do. And unfortunately, what you'll find is that the world will congratulate you. They'll actually validate you for you escaping you and you abandoning you, which is how I felt when I'm standing at the finish line of all these ultras. People are like, oh, you're killing it. I'm getting all these coaching clients. I'm like, really? Yeah, well, I fucking hate myself. And so coming home to that realization, I think for me now it's more of like asking myself, what actually honors my essence? What actually honors my life? And then sometimes that the uncomfortable thing, like this morning for 3 hours, was like doing the books in my business.
Dude, you just blew my mind out of my body, because I'd never thought about that concept before. Of you're 100%, you're honoring this sacrifice, and your identity's wrapped up into this thing that you get congratulations from other people, and that's exciting. But is it true who you truly are? And I think if you look on Instagram or like social media, I would say that like 90% of those people are out on a ledge, so they don't even truly want to be out.
Right. I think we have a really toxic coaching culture right now. So on one sense, I think it's amazing that that coaching is just becoming a really big industry, because it's like people are realizing, oh, I need help getting to places that I can't get to. So that's incredible. At the same time, there's a lot of influencers out there that actually you're just paying them to reinforce their shitty worldview and their coping mechanisms. And so I think pulling that apart and asking yourself some really honest questions about that, because I think that there are a lot of people out there that, they have learned to survive in the world a certain way. The world validates that way. And now you're paying them to continue to do that, rather than, ask them to hold up a mirror to you, which is actually, as a coach or as a client, that's what you really need. You need them to hold up a mirror and say, well, here are the things you're missing. Because you can't see the problem, right? And that's what a coach does. It shows you, hey, the thing that you need, it's where you're not looking. And so they hold up a mirror and they show it to you. But there's another kind of coach that says, well, you just have to do what I'm doing. And you'll see it in their stories on Instagram. They're like, oh, you want to make six figures? Here's how to do it. And so be like me, do what I'm doing. Well, they might hate themselves, right? And so it might not be what you need, because you're different people. And just starting to pull that apart a little bit in your own life could be really, really beneficial, I think.
This reminds me of something that I think, Austin, you were talking about the other day, which is when you're in the picture, you can't see the frame. And the value of a coach is that they can have that perspective outside to see in, where you nailed it on the head, Rick. We don't even know where to look. Like we're looking in the places that we're most comfortable looking. We think that's the obvious place, but the places that we really need to introspect are so protected by our psyche and in our subconscious that we don't even know to be looking there. And this is a conversation that we've been having the last couple of weeks about the idea of selective vulnerability, which is, this is something I struggle with, and somebody brought to my attention. They're like, hey, you're being selectively vulnerable when you share these stories, because really what you're doing is you're sharing your failures in a way that then lead to the success. You're not really sharing the true failure and like how that felt to you. And I was like, that's interesting. And it's true. I had just so guarded against those true failures and sharing that. And so what I perceived as vulnerability isn't truly that, because I'm choosing what I'm revealing.
Right. You're like using the highlight reel of the failures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, to set up success on the back end. So I feel good about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, we live in a very filtered culture right now. So it's just natural to constantly filter the things that you're showing people. And also too, there's a fine line because you don't want to dump your shitty problems on people. Right. And so I think, but at the same time, right, since we're having this conversation about discomfort, the actual feeling of the failure. And, there's this moment when you fail something, because we always look back and we talk about our failures in line to our success. And we can see that, well, that failure is really the tuition I paid to learn what I needed to know in order to become successful. But if you can go back to ground zero of that failure, like there's that moment where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do from here. And I think that you have to acknowledge that part of yourself. Otherwise you're just repressing and it's going to come back to bite you later on.
Well, I want to ask you this question, Rick, because this is something that I live on, and this is something I work on every day. Because if you look at, let's say, the large scale coaches, right, the high end coaches, I feel like their information is very broad a lot of the times. And so I realize that in order for me to be the best version of myself, yes, I might be 2.5 years removed from being an alcoholic, but I was one. If I can reach back and tap into that moment of despair and that zero moment, and I can relate to my clients there instead of be so far removed from it that I don't understand starting from one, then that's where I become the ultimate coach for my being able to hold up the mirror. Correct?
What do you mean? Like, why do you think that?
I think that I'm so far removed from being a drug addict and homeless and alcoholic that I forget where I started. That if I can tap into those aspects of where I started, I can understand. Like sometimes I sit on my pedestal saying, just quit drinking. But like, I don't realize how many years I was in that vicious cycle. And if I can tap into my despair in that moment and relate to them on that level, then I can actually be the coach they need instead of be on my pedestal.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. So I don't coach. I'm a writer and a speaker, but I have a sticky note to myself that says, like right on my monitor, that says, do the world a favor and don't write about suffering when you're not. And it's because you won't get it. You really won't.
That's powerful. And man, last night I was working with a guy on storytelling, and he was telling a story about failure and how it's just really important to success. And we all know this, like we fail our way to success and we talk about it and it becomes this trite thing. And what ends up happening is then we start to, we look back with rose tinted glasses at the situation and be like, oh, if it was, I was an alcoholic and meth head and my divorce, but without that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And it's like, yeah, that's true. Fair enough. But in that moment, like you wouldn't go back and choose it again in that moment. Right. Like it really freaking sucked. And so if you're telling, like in this guy's situation, he was telling the story of like all this stuff that had gone wrong, but he was doing it with a smile on his face. And I was like, I'm not connecting with you right now because you're telling this story about this horrible stuff that's happening and you're happy about it. And that doesn't reflect how you truly felt and how you navigated that situation. And so to Austin's point, like, how do we get back to like remembering authentically, like, okay, failure is important. Being uncomfortable is important, but growth sucks. Like, let's not get that twisted. Like growth is hard. It requires us to be uncomfortable, and we're creatures that have evolved to not be uncomfortable. Like, so it's like, how do we stay true to that essence?
Well, I think it is staying true to the feeling that is the thing that tells you which way you need to grow. Right. So what I mean by that is you go through something, you got to be honest about the results you're getting and the way it feels, because that's your truth, right? So what you'll notice in the growth industry, for example, is a lot of this hustle culture. Like a lot of people will just continue to buy books and listen to podcasts from people that are reinforcing their worldview. They're like, just do it harder, do it better, do it more. And they're like, well, that part I can do. So I'll just keep listening to him, right? Now, at some point though, you're going to get these pangs, right? From the center of who you are telling you this ain't working. You're not feeling it. You're not doing it. Now that moment, that's the thing you need to listen to, because that's where your adventure is, right? It's not in going to do the thing that's reinforcing your worldview. It's actually the feeling that says, man, I think that there's something better for me out here. I think there's something more, rock bottom moments like you're talking about now with the deep failures. they give us those. They just put them right in our face. Like there's nothing else to think about because you're at the bottom. But being really honest with yourself about what direction that's taking you, right? Or what directions it's asking you to go, because all of those feelings are invitations to a better kind of life. You just got to stop. You've got to stop pushing them down and listening to someone that's reinforcing your worldview. So it's asking yourself those tough questions and then being really honest with yourself about the answers, and then asking yourself, well, then if that's the answer, where's that bringing me?
So I can't get over this thought process where, so if this idea that you said about not going to the gym, like I can't wrap, this is like blowing my mind. So if you like the gym and it creates me being a better person and like I'm happier because I poured into myself, but maybe on some coin, I'm actually like leaning into it too much. How do you find the balance as a human to understand what's true and what's not?
Well, I mean, you got to learn to listen to yourself, right? And most people don't know how to listen to themselves. They know how to listen to other people. They know how to reinforce what they already think. And so the question is not about, like, as humans, I think we want to add value judgments to things. We want to say, it's always good to do this. It's always bad. Except nothing is always, nothing is only. We live in a very nuanced world. You're a very nuanced creature. And so actually it just comes down to asking yourself, well, if I don't go today and I don't go tomorrow, what does that mean about me? Now, that doesn't take away from the good things you get, but it is to ask yourself, is a part of you missing if you don't have that gym, right? If you don't have there, are you not as whole as a human being? Because if you're not, you're probably compensating for something. And so there's the thing you need to sit with. So that's not to say that going to the gym is bad, right? We do things that breathe life into us, that inspire us, and we have to have those things or life feels meaningless. At the same time, you want to work toward wholeness by yourself, because look, if it can be given, it can also be taken, right? And so if your wholeness is contingent on all of these external things coming together and happening for you, well, you're on borrowed time, unfortunately, right? Then the pandemic comes and you don't get to go to work anymore. Then something happens and you don't get the thing that makes you whole. And now all you realize, oh, fuck, I'm not whole. And so the idea would be to work through the things in yourself that are actually broken off. And that's a deep thing to do, you know?
Rick, I notice a lot of like stoic concepts coming through when you're talking. I don't know if that's intentionally, but like what you're talking about there, that which can be given can be taken. I think Seneca nailed this on the head, you know, when he talked about Lady Fortune, if she giveth, she can taketh, and so I don't trust anything she giveth. And like all you have then is what you're developing inside. And when I hear this conversation about, am I identifying part of myself as the gym, or like going to the gym? Is that a part of me now? And if you take that away, is part of me missing? And I think that's a really interesting perspective to look at it. Like, can I stand on my own, you know, apart from all these things that I do, like as a routine or as a habit or as a means for growth? Like if I can stand apart from that and just be. And I think that's the really difficult thing with our culture and the coaching culture. You know, I'm not a coach either, but it's all about it. It's very rarely just about being and like stripping away. It's about adding things. And I'm a big fan of like Nassim Taleb's Via Negativa, which is we learn a thing by the opposite of the thing. And like that really what we should be trying to do is strip away instead of adding. And so I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Especially in the world where we have more than we could ever imagine and we feel less fulfilled than ever. So that just tells you, like, you know, abundance in material and abundance in disposition toward life are very different things. And so actually probably what most of us need, is letting go and trying to find wholeness without the things. And again, it can be taken. And the other thing is, it's just not going to work forever. Like that's the other thing to think about. Like, maybe you use weed to feel whole, or maybe you use the gym to feel whole, or whatever, right? I've used all these things. The thing is though, like, they're going to work less and less, right? This is what addiction is. It's a narrowing of what excites you, right? And so this is why you end up on page 195 on Pornhub, right? It doesn't stay the way it started. It gets deeper and deeper and worse and worse and harder and more difficult and more difficult. And the gym is that anything that activates your dopaminergic pathways is going to work that way. And so the reason to work toward wholeness isn't to say like, oh, these things are bad, right? We always demonize the thing. It's like, it's bad, it's good. It's like, no, the problem's here. You've got to work through the problem in yourself, because whether or not that's good or bad is irrelevant. You've got something going on in here that you've got to work through. So just opening up to that can be a really beneficial process, because you can start to find wholeness without those things. In response to your thoughts about Stoics. So I follow a wisdom path, and it kind of dawned on me actually this morning that like what wisdom is like, just takes a dialectic view of the world, right? It looks at both and all the time. So this situation, like part of this is all meaningless, right? Part of this is we're going to exist as dust on a planet that used to hold life 1 million years from now, 2 million years from now, whatever it might be. And at the same time, this is the most meaningful thing that you have, because it's all you have. Mm-hmm. And so it's the both and constantly. It's like, So I think there probably is Stoic philosophies that come through in my thought process, because it's all about not attaching yourself to the one single thing that's happening right now, and also recognizing that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So this thing that is right in front of you really, really matters. And then also, there's a bit of pulling the identity back into self that matters too.
I want to reemphasize that part about how you do anything is how you do everything, because I think that is just so absolutely on the head. Because this whole concept of we are both inconsequential, but we're also the universe itself. Like we are everything and we are nothing. And if you can live in the balance between those two concepts, which is kind of like a mindfuck on its own, if you can do that, though, you realize that nothing you do matters and everything you do matters.
I think, and I think you don't have to necessarily grasp them, but you keep them both in view while you move through the world, right? It's the recognition that's true. And the thing about how you do one thing is how you do everything sounds like a cliche. And if you don't feel that way, actually, you're just convincing yourself of that. And so what you'll find is over time that it's true. Like you can convince yourself of anything. You can act anything out for a couple of years, but eventually, you'll look back and you'll be like, man, there's, cause you're giving yourself to this life in some way. And as the way our psyche works, it's very hard to compartmentalize the thing that you're doing and then to hold that different than the thing that you're about to do next. Like everything is bleeding into, and your entire world is bleeding into other parts of your world all the time. And that's a function of just human capacity.
Yeah, that's kind of like, you can look at that statement, how you do anything is how you do everything. And you can look at it as an opportunity for accepting responsibility, or as an opportunity to make an excuse. And honestly, like you don't have to accept it. Like you can go on with your life, like you're saying, and that'll work for a little bit. But if you get to the point where you're like, for whatever reason, I'm still not feeling complete, like it could just start by going back, because consistency, our identity, it's one of the most powerful drivers that we have as a human. And so this need to be in alignment with who we think we are on the deep inside. And when you do things that aren't in alignment with that, whether that's like, oh, I didn't do this task, or I didn't pursue that thing in the way that I knew I could, I didn't do it with 100% me, then you feel a little bit like a hypocrite inside, right? And it's like self-esteem is the reputation that you have with yourself. And like other people don't necessarily know if you phoned it in, but and that's mental tax.
Dude, 100%. And you'll never get away with it, right?
Nope. You can't fool yourself.
Right. It's interesting because that's a function of self-awareness, right? Where one lens is looking out at the world and the other lens is looking back at self constantly. And there's a lot of research that says you never forget one single thing you ever see, do, or learn. Just because you can't access it doesn't mean that it's not stored in your operating system as the way to move through the world, which is precisely how we learn. And so, like that's the real problem, right? I used to tell myself when I was at the end of my military career, I was really over it. At the same time, I had businesses that I really cared about. And so I would give myself to these businesses, and then I would resent the military when I was at work. And I thought that I could keep up this split life. And actually what happened is that resentment, for example, if you're doing something you don't want to do, that'll bleed into every aspect of your life. It's a insatiable hunger. It'll take over everything. And so that's exactly what happened. I was fooling myself that I could keep all these different parts of my life compartmentalized. And then you lay down in your head at night, and the part of you that knows you mailed it in at work is the part of you that's laying your head down at night, and you're not going to forget about it. And unfortunately, kind of a cruel trick of the psyche, also can be used for growth if you look at it that way. But when things come to an end, right, relationship, projects, whatever it is, you're instantly going to become aware of all of the ways in which you did not show up to your capacity. Mm-hmm. Like it's the thing that crushes people about breakups, for example, like, especially if they've like, you know, whatever, like, I remember last breakup that was particularly difficult. I just remember thinking about all the times I sat on the couch looking at my fucking phone on Instagram with her right next to me. And I was just zoned out, and how much I thought like I'd give anything to just go back to that evening and put my fucking phone down. And so, you know, hopefully I can swear on here. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So you're never going to allow yourself to forget it, and you're going to come face to face with it the moment that your reality falls apart, right? Because right now what you're doing is you've got all these pieces of your reality put together, and you're telling yourself, oh, it's okay because I'm like this. Oh, it's okay because I'm like this over here. And so once one Jenga block gets pulled and your coherence comes crumbling down, then at that moment, you're going to come face to face with all of the ways in which you haven't shown up for your life. And that sucks, and also can be used to like really motivate you to show up going forward.
And I mean, to bring this full circle from what we were talking about before, a breakup is like a mini death. And when you have a project that ends, and what you're talking about there is you become aware of all the things that you could have done better, or how you didn't show up. That's what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which is like, think about the day before you die and looking back, and you're gonna have to face that truth someday. You're going to have to face it. So are you going to be able to face it in the way that Ed Milet gets to face it? And he gets to say like, good fucking job. Like, yeah, I showed up and I did it. Or are you going to show up with resentment and regret? Like, because then it's too late. There's that. Right now it's not too late. There's still time. You still have, today. So go do something with that. So, but guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. I hate to end it early, but we are definitely going to get Rick back on the show with our buddy Angelo and go really deep, because I think we could just go for days on these topics. But before we let you out of here, Rick, where can people get a hold of you, man?
I'm the most active on Instagram at @RickAlexander_. And then my newest book, Ambitious Heroes and Heartache, is available on Amazon.
Sweet.
And see, guys, that was the longest I've been quiet my entire life.
I noticed that, man.
I just want to say honored to be in this conversation. And there's so many different levels of, Rick has me thinking like he always does about so many things, and Anthony. And, if you have not checked out Rick's books, trust me, do yourself a favor. If you have not, and not to mention his podcast is quick, next level, and it really gets you started for the day. So
what's that podcast again?
Morning Coffee with Rick Alexander.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Sorry. I was your hype man there. So
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you soon, man. I appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us here at The Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a brain dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do, where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.